At 2:47 p.m. local time on Tuesday, January 27, 2026, a series of earthquakes began striking one after the other offshore of the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. These earthquakes did not seemingly follow the traditional pattern of a main shock and aftershock sequence, instead resembling that but not necessarily being an earthquake swarm. Across the next 36 hours, 12 magnitude 4, 10 magnitude 5, and 1 magnitude 6 range earthquakes struck in a fairly narrow area. While none of these earthquakes caused any damage or loss of life, their location worried many locals who contacted me about it. Why? Well, these earthquakes occurred at the subduction zone of the Cotabato Trench, an area of tectonic plate collision that has produced many of the nation's largest tsunamis as a result of high-magnitude earthquakes. Earthquakes in this zone exceeding magnitude 7 occurred in 1928, 1976, and 2002, with a magnitude 8.3 quake occurring here in 1918. Yet, while some locals are wondering if these recent earthquakes are foreshocks before a larger magnitude earthquake strikes, I want to remind them of a simple fact. When an earthquake or series of earthquake strikes, there are absolutely no ways to identify if said earthquake or earthquake sequence marks a foreshock. Anyone claiming otherwise or attempting to claim that these earthquakes have a high chance of being foreshocks, especially on YouTube, is putting out misinformation in my opinion. We can only identify an earthquake as a foreshock in hindsight after a large main shock quake occurred. And besides, only about 5% of earthquakes worldwide, statistically speaking, are foreshocks, meaning the vast majority are not such. We can't predict when or what magnitude earthquakes are going to happen in a specific narrow time frame. Besides, a majority of large magnitude earthquakes occur without any foreshocks beforehand. Now, back to the earthquake sequence that has occurred so far this week, statistics suggest it does not represent a foreshock sequence. Besides, a similar earthquake swarm-like cluster occurred on the same subduction zone on April 19th of 2025, and that did not precede some larger magnitude earthquake. These sequences could both be the result of random chance, or it could even be caused by increasing pore pressure from fluid movement, which has triggered many similar earthquake swarm-like or actual earthquake swarms on subduction zones worldwide. I personally interpret the latter explanation to be the most likely. Well, yes, the chance of an actually destructive earthquake is always ever so slightly more likely on a day when a magnitude 5 earthquake strikes on a known major plate boundary versus on a day when one does not. This isn't a helpful metric. I hope this information can relieve any fears that people might have who live on or near the island of Mindanao. As a final note, I want to add that there could have potentially been additional earthquake swarm-like sequences on the Cotabato Trench, but I was limited to datasets that accurately showed magnitude 4.5 or larger events, which was only since 1974. So, this week's activity seems to be the only second time such a sequence has struck this boundary of the Sunda Plate with the Philippine Mobile Belt.